Hey guys, welcome back to our communication series. This week we're going to take a little bit of a turn from last week, and it's one of those things that it may seem like the opposite of what we talked about last week. But in fact, it's something that needs to work together with it. So last week we talked specifically about listening and how to be a good listener. And I always remember what my grandmother told me was God gave you two ears and one mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you talk, which I think is really important. So some of the tips we talked about after that lesson in our Zooms um, is we want to engage with the other person when we're listening, make eye contact, ask questions, nod, repeat what they're saying back to them in different words to show that you're paying attention. Those are important skills to what we're going to talk about today, which is how do I get my point across? Every conversation you have has a purpose. That purpose could be very simple. It could be, I want to hang out with this person, or I want to talk about Beyblades, or I want to see what memes that you found this weekend because I haven't seen you all weekend. All of those conversations, they have a purpose, and there's going to be a driving force to get to that end goal, whether it's seeing memes or talking about Beyblade culture, or those are super cool shoes that you have, whatever it is, there's an end point that we want to reach. Sometimes the travel from our beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation is a lot more treacherous than other times. It's a lot more difficult to ask someone to go to the dance with you than it is to go to your best friend of 8 years and talk about what video games you guys are currently playing or what's trending on social media, right? So the first thing you need to do if you're going to have a difficult conversation is prepare for it. You need to put in a little bit of effort before the conversation actually happens. And this may seem like it's extra schoolwork, but it's really important for us to understand that there needs to be effort put into that conversation in order for it to be successful, right? Because if you want to talk to your friend about the shoes that they're wearing, and they're the most ugly shoes that you've ever seen, and you just shout, "What are those?" in front of everybody in the cafeteria, that could really hurt their feelings. But if you go up to that person one-on-one and you say, "Hey, there's been some people who have been poking fun at your shoes. I just want you to know that this is happening and I don't want you to get hurt." That's a very different conversation with the same end goal, but one was handled poorly and one was handled well, because the one that was handled well had preparation. So what does preparation mean? It means basically understand what you want. So that conversation, I want my friend to stop wearing stupid shoes. Okay, how do I get to that point then? Do I need to prepare? Sometimes you're going to have to put in some research effort. I don't think if you need to tell your friend to stop wearing, say, bright red cowboy boots, that you need to build up like a research pod that you send them in a 500-page PDF about the costs that go into making shoes or anything like that. You just need to say, "Hey, this is what I've noticed." But if you're going to have other important conversations, like a first job interview, or this might be the first person you've ever asked out on a date, there's research you can do. You can watch videos of people. YouTube is a great place for this, on how to have that specific form of communication. So put in that preparation effort beforehand. When you get to the conversation, even though you put your point forward, make sure you don't just monologue and tell them everything in one fell swoop and get it all out of your system and leave. You need to listen to what the other person wants. This other person may say, "I don't care what other people think. I love these shoes and I'm going to wear them," right? You need to listen if you're in a job interview. What questions are they asking you? They want to know about you. You need to listen if you go on a date to what your date has to say, right? So know what the other person wants. That's step 2. Know what you want. Know what the other person wants. Step 3 is a sometimes thing. This really helps me if I know that I'm going into a situation that is going to be emotionally charged. Whether it's talking to my wife about something, or it's talking to a boss, or anything that falls in that realm of this may get emotionally changed. It could be talking to a friend sometimes about something serious. Write down what you want to say. That does a couple things for you. Number 1, you won't forget what you wanted to say, because in the moment it's really easy to just and have it fall out of your mind. Number 2, it'll make it a non-emotional conversation, or at least a less emotional conversation. When you bring in facts and say, these are the things that I want to bring up to you, that makes it not an emotional conversation, but a real conversation, right? And not to say that emotions aren't real, but it looks at the facts. And it says, these are the things that are happening, and I want to help you with them, or I want you to help me change them. And finally, it focuses on the problem you need to fix. Some of these problems could be very minor in comparison to others. This is really useful for if you want to talk to your parents about a later curfew, or you want to talk about a bigger allowance, or if you're in a job, you want to talk about a raise. But this is really great for really powerful and emotional conversations. Hey, I want to talk to you about Jesus because I've been going to church for a while, and these are the things that I wrote down right here that I really like about going to church and having the support from there. Or, hey, you've joked a couple times about your mental health, and I'm worried that you may be struggling with something. And I want to have a serious conversation about it, and I want you to know that I support you. Right? Those are a lot heavier conversations that are easy to brush off if you don't prepare for. So, let's go over our 3 points here again. Number 1, prepare. Make sure you're ready to talk about what you're going to talk about. Number 2, listen. Understand what they want after you understand what you want. And number 3, if you need to, write down what you need to bring up. Make sure that you don't miss something, that you make things less emotional, and that you focus on the problem that you want to fix. So I want to jump into the book of Titus really quick. There's 2 verses that I really like in here. Titus 2:8 says, sound speech cannot be condemned, that one who is an opponent may be ashamed of having nothing evil to say of you. And what that means is when you're talking to somebody, if you can give your all in understanding them and treating them well, especially if this is an emotionally charged argument that gets you really upset, instead of yelling at them, say, hey, this really upsets me and it's hard for me to talk about it. Can we try this again tomorrow or in a week once I've calmed down a bit, because I don't want to just yell at you. That's not going to do anything good, right? Because when you are really good at having conversations, then that person, even if it's a person you don't like, they can't even make something up to say you're bad at. And the second one in Titus is chapter 3, verse 2. Speak evil of no one. Be peaceable, gentle, showing all humility towards all men. And I think this is really, really important, especially right now. It's election season. And I'm sure that somewhere you guys have seen advertisements where it's this person putting this person down and this person saying this person's wrong, and everybody just wants to be mean to each other. And I've heard from a lot of you guys already that you want people to just be nice to each other, right? So it's really important that, especially if you have a strong political alignment with somebody, that you allow people who don't match with what you believe in to speak and have their own opinions too. Because by doing that, we're showing God's love. That's what God would do. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everybody you talk to, but allow people to talk. Allow them to have their time as well. Because by doing that, you open that door, because you've treated them with respect. They're most likely going to treat you with respect and listen to what you have to say too. So make sure, my last note down here, that listening is so important. After you've prepared and you've figured out what you want from the conversation, strengthen your point by listening to the opposition. Understand what's the counterpoint to this. And that goes for small things to huge things. What do people use to argue against this? And do I believe that or not? Make those decisions for yourself, and that will strengthen how you can communicate with someone else.